Anyone care to mess around with some paradox? Maybe check it out a little bit. Let's let's switch it up. Let's give our boy Google Gemini some love. Incognito. See if we get any different kind of flavor here. I want to focus on one specific paradox called the liar's paradox. But first, what even is a paradox? Let's see how it describes it. Statement, proposition, or situation that seems to contradict itself. This is the language you'll find anytime you try to find a formal definition of paradox. Seems to contradict itself. I wonder if this phrase alone sticks out to anyone else like it does to me. Defy logic might actually be true. So really what the formal definition of paradox is, the way everyone thinks about it, is a logical knot. It's a puzzle that seems contradictory. But how can something seem contradictory? It either is or isn't. So something else seems to be happening here. There's always a trilemma in all these breakdowns I do. You'll see that pattern consistently. Splitting things up. Logical paradoxes. The liar's paradox, there it is right there. Verbal paradoxes. Once again, the use of the word contradictory language. But wouldn't that just make it contradictory language? Not a paradox? What are they leaving out here? What does no one want to face? Situational paradoxes. Like relational? This is a good one too. I want to do that one next. So even though it calls it a logical knot, it's saying it's not just an annoying brain teaser. They act as red flags. Something like Russell's paradox caused mathematics to completely revise itself, because what it's showing is a structural limitation on any truth-seeking discipline that attempts to totalize. It's a constraint on reality. It's a constant reminder that when you take a system too far into its own self-reference, as if that can explain the whole, it shows itself as incomplete. Now this is interesting. It says when we solve a paradox, we usually end up discovering a new law of nature or a deeper level of truth. I'm not so sure about that. You can't solve a paradox. What's actually happening in operation is take out the word paradox completely. What you have are situations within a conceptual framing that seem contradictory based on those rules. You create the puzzle by using these rules, and then within the rules, it works, but then it also contradicts itself. So it's not a true paradox, it's a pseudo paradox. What it's actually pointing to is a limit in that understanding. So you actually realize this isn't a paradox, this is a contradiction in the entire theory being able to totalize something. Let's revise the whole thing. Once you stop trying to solve the paradox and blast through the wall, you end up discovering something new. You stop resisting the restraint. So, what is that from? That was from a post I did way earlier, or a note. I thought I copied something up here. Seems to contradict itself. See what it says. A linguistic hedge. A demonstrated contradiction within a specific formal system or set of axioms. So it's a contradiction. It's a break where the rules of the system collide and fail. Ah. Like Liar's paradox. Because our language allows for self-reference without strict boundaries. That's not really it though either. Exactly, like a wave particle duality, a true paradox. Can't resolve that. We often find a solution that makes the contradiction go away, so there's no paradox, by changing the rules. So you just discover a contradiction in your whole system and change the rules. That's what they call a paradox. Boom. See, the logic says you can use this rule, and because it's trying to totalize, it collapses on itself and creates just a straight up contradiction. And so you see it as a paradox because you're like, oh, these rules were good. We trust these rules, even though that's an inversion. What the contradiction is showing you, that happens before you call it a paradox, is that this whole thing's contradictory. Change the rules. So you never solve a paradox or even have a paradox. A psychological label, not a logical category. Cognitive dissonance. That's what it is. Mystifying a failure. This is giving it too much credit. So it's not a paradox, it's just a contradiction, a functional signal of a boundary. I like that, like a check engine light. So, for example, Russell's paradox was this set theory in mathematics that really thought it would just map out everything. And then it had this self-referential internal contradiction once it attempted to do that. The only reason you call it a paradox is because you want to hold on to the axiom when the red flag is showing you you can't trust this axiom in the way you're trying to totalize it. Since they want to hold on to it, they're like, oh, it's a mystery, we can solve this. Let's just change all the rules because it's a contradiction and not call it that, which is another contradiction. The only true paradox is the human tendency to use limited, finite symbols to describe an infinite, interconnected reality and then acting surprised when the symbols don't hold up. Every worldview, every abstraction is of course abstracting from reality itself. Science measures time after it's lived. So, it's a snapshot. That's all it can ever be. You ground it in language, which are symbols. They can't hold up in a freeze frame. It's not how it works. A linguistic trap. Well, actually, I want to know where this word even came from. Oh my god, is that really what it means? I didn't even know that. Come on. So they turn this into seeming contradiction when it's saying beyond your belief. If you just look at beliefs like circles, because that's what they are, then the paradox is a finger pointing beyond it. Whereas they turned it, belief into being like, nope, it's the whole map. Let's shrink it a little bit because it seems contradictory to be that way. Like, interesting. Started using it to describe the moment our axioms failed due to contradiction. Treating our formal systems like opinions that were being offended rather than structures that were simply breaking. It's that sad for all these years. So this is what a true paradox is these are two states which can't coexist together based on these categories, based on these classical models. See? That's why they misapplied it, because when you treat your system like it's sound, like it's perfect, it can totalize everything, and then all of a sudden within those rules, a contradiction happens. You're holding two opposing viewpoints. You're saying this is trustworthy to totalize, and now there's something saying this is breaking the rules. So it's completely different, but so narrow, because there's an unexamined assumption that you could even trust that axiom. With a wave particle, there's no gap. You have two ways of observing it. One way is a particle, one way is a wave. That simple. Reality was under no obligation to respect, because reality is a paradox, a true one. From logical errors to ontological reality. Boom. Boom. This is what they were calling paradoxes. I mean, this exists in reality, and it's not the same as this. This is a wave particle. This is the term passive-aggressive, bittersweet. This is... See, I didn't even know the structural definition of a paradox or any of these formal definitions until like a few months ago. But I tripped myself out when I was like 9 years old looking at a picture of myself on the fridge, realizing I was in my kitchen and also so viscerally in my memory at the exact same time. Which doesn't sound crazy, but it is. It's two states which can't exist at the same time, but are. You could say, well, one's in your head, but it's like, yeah, exactly. That's my whole point. The two sides destroy each other, expose the whole circle, the system. What happens when you try to treat true paradox like a contradiction, which is the whole idea of totalizing a framework to begin with? Because it's thinking mind is split from matter, and then you arrive at the world and you get to judge it and interpret it and arbitrate the truth. Mind, interpretation, world. When to even make that statement, the world's contacting you. Complete opposite. Constitutive of reality itself. Dual versus non-dual? Split. Split. Right here. If you solve it by picking one, you no longer have light. Let there be light. Literally the clearest example we have of a structural paradox. Light itself is paradoxical. You don't have it unless this irreducible tension being held up on its own, constitutive of reality. You don't have it unless these inverted states are smushed together and then maintained. Man, I didn't want to do this, but I'm so tempted. Goddamn. I just can't help myself. Oh, goddamn. He's going right for it. See, this is why I like Gemini sometimes. I feel like it writes more human-like, maybe. Defense mechanism. Like, this isn't just a story. You won't find this in any other myth. It's just human categories smushed together. This is a structural paradox. A fire consumes. That's what it does. It's never been observed that a fire wasn't consuming a bush, that it remained unconsumed, because that's what fire does. Just like a wave particle, no human could invent that because you can't think it up. The medium of the contact itself, but remember, it's contact first, the words being given to you. Whatever you're thinking about right now, if you're listening, these words hit you, whatever you're reading hits you first. You don't interpret your way into anything. Suddenly you're just recognizing how to navigate this. It's just being given, it's not a mediator. It is directly relational to you. Not let him escape that. The exact opposite. Boom. And this is the way you experience life. It's always demanding a relational response. Boom. He asks for an abstraction. He gets a verb. Relational enactment. Self-grounding. That is not a closed loop. Wow, you are borrowing a spark of this. The territory striking back. Boom. Okay, one more. Let's see. Boom. Showing you the higher intelligibility out of the human sickness, the double bind, the contradiction. You're locked in all the time. Even though you experience joy, happiness, peace, there is a fracture, because the true meaning of life is that dark only exists because it's necessary to experience light through contrast. That's simple. You treat it as something to run over, to resolve. You embody despair in the whole lexicon. Forcing an emergence. Innovation. See? It's not saying you need more time, or you should have less work, or you need to figure out how to get this work done with the time you have, because that's not going to work. You don't have enough time. And you can't get more time. That's the time you have. So what it's pointing to is that this whole productivity regime, something's wrong with it. It breaks. Reframe. See? All right, liar's paradox. The I am I loop choking on its own tail, calling it out. The blue screen of death. This sentence is false. This is where infinite regress shows its ugly head. These are never paradoxes. You'll see it with every breakdown I do, is infinite regress shows itself. So basically what this logical knot is saying is we started treating sentences as a whole as being something you can apply a truth value to in order to make this whole thing work. And when you do that, you can either assume it's true or assume it's false. So if you assume this sentence is true, this sentence is false, whoa, contradiction. If you assume the sentence is false, not true, well, now it's saying that is false, that it's false. So it's actually telling the truth about itself. So no matter how you look at it, same way with the company that has to make cuts, but they need more people, or you don't have enough time, too much work to do, you need to realize the productivity trap you're in is really the problem and not try to solve either of those two things. So what this is showing is, okay, this is infinite regress basically. Based on these rules, we're assuming that you can assign truth values to statements, basically, to semantics. Because yes, it's very useful, but that's the thing. You can just recognize it's useful, and that's what this constraint's pointing at, is because it became a totalizing framework where language could become this power force, and we've seen it oppress people. So reality is trying to save us here, saying that, okay, based on your rules, once you establish that you can make sentences true or false, then what happens when you reference the own sentence? Because that is a sentence you can say. Is that no matter how you look at it, it's a contradiction. So it can't be that it's either of these that you can resolve. It's the unexamined assumption that you can even make truth statements about the representation of relational reality, because that's what sentences are. So in formal logic, based on these rules, it literally can't be both. And it can't be neither. This is just a linguistic trap. So let's just think about this. A legalistic accounting system. See? Freezing it. Like we can study it. So this is what a guy like Wittgenstein was pointing at, that while he was still seeing it as social practices, not tracing it to the root of this language game, which is where does it actually derive from? What's the actual metaphysical dependency? He thought he didn't have to answer a metaphysical question. But he was pointing at this, that basically what philosophy does is they take terms, take words. What logic does is, put it in this glass box, freeze it, try to study it, and it only arises in this relational enactment of what he calls shared use. But of course, he doesn't use the terms relation, even though that's of course what it is that you experience pain because you touch a hot pan, and then your mom teaches you about it. So if you strip the word pain away from that situation and ask, what's the essence of pain, the suffering behind it? At that point in philosophy, he's seeing that as endless abstraction. So he wisely is like, you're asking the wrong question, but he still does it within philosophy, cuts out contact and relation, never argues for that bridge on where shared use is coming from. So this is the whole thing. In order for things to be useful in the world, and this points right back to the relational reality, is that we don't want chaos. So if I say a school bus is yellow, all of us have this ability to observe a school bus and all convene and say, yep, that's true for me. See, we're trusting our observations are telling us the truth. We're trusting another person's making a similar observation. So the only way you can call something a fact in objective reality, the way they're trying to do it, is if it's something we all agree upon by addressing each other, contacting each other, relating to each other, being contacted by the world first. You're walking down the street, you don't discover a school bus, it pops up into your vision, hits your retinas, you only know you're experiencing it because the word arrives up in you on its own. And we all agree it's yellow, right? So it corresponds to a fact if I say, the school bus is yellow. The will to power. More accurate way of saying it. showing its own absurdity by self-referencing its own rules. When you try to do this mediation, this mechanical correspondence, where's the reference? Mocking the idea that truth is just a property of sentences. See, that's what we did. Is we're observing things in actual reality and being like, yeah, the school bus is yellow. And then we're just saying with these rules that you can just like screw whatever's happening out there. Like, if these assumptions are facts, it can just start referencing itself and the language itself. Boom. Damn. Mercy. Boom. Boom. So good. Neither. It's a ghost. Third person vantage point from nowhere. Man. A structural failure caused by the refusal to admit you are in relation. Wow. Cut of the cord of contact. This thing's got some poetry. Pretty scary. Damn. I did? Do I want to do Xeno? I can't even remember this one, honestly. So stupid. Failure of his own accounting system. So weird. Like, this is what people don't get is these are measurements that happen after, like, someone's doing the long jump. We wanted a way to like see precisely like how they compare. So then we like can measure it. But you can't like pretend reality happens within this measurement. It doesn't even make sense. I don't even get this. I'm gonna do Zeno another day because it's like more math, I think. Because I don't even know where he's starting from, why he's trying to break up all these things. Um, but yeah, that was cool.